Well, welcome everybody to part 4 of the alumni online program for those people who have completed the program at Sunshine Coast Health Center. And week 4, the last in our series on spirituality. And this theme that we're operating on is that spirituality equals meaning and purpose in life. This is the power of spirituality. Now that's not 100% across the board people believe that, but just about everybody believes that meaning and purpose has something to do with spirituality. A lot of people think that the two are basically the same thing. So that's the sort of the premise we're operating on, that if you can find meaning and purpose in your life, this is in fact being spiritual. Mainly because you believe that there's some greater force in the world in which you're tapping into. Okay, and today's topic is on a very interesting character by the name of Aaron Antonovsky. Antonovsky became famous for this idea that what he was going to do is he's going to look at how people thrived in the world. And he maintained that they had these like 3 things happening. He said they could look at their lives and their lives were 1, predictable, 2, manageable, and 3, what he called meaningful. And by meaningful, what he basically meant was that someone would feel as if his life was worth it to give this great emotional investment in it. So this emotional investment is actually what he called meaning and purpose, or meaningfulness. Okay. And this idea is really quite interesting because it's part of what we call positive psychology. This idea of let's look at what makes people thrive. Let's look at what makes people feel fulfilled and contented. And in the addiction field, the reason I use Antonovsky is that although his theories are applied in many fields, they're also applied in the addiction field. And the researchers have discovered that people who had this predictable, manageable, meaningful life actually fared much better in recovery than those who didn't. In fact, on some long-term studies, it was a really terrific predictor, first of all, of who would not only do well in recovery, but who would not die as a direct result of drug use over a 5-year term. But it's now, and I can think of off the top of my head about 40 studies that I personally know of where it's been applied to the addiction field with basically the same results across the board. Okay? So if people could make sense of their lives, what he called a sense of coherence, then they would get much better recovery, better quality of life than those people who couldn't do that. And again, this is this idea, I think, of spirituality, where this force that is in the world, right? If you attach yourself to it, if you can tap into it or join with this force, then it offers some way of making sense to life. And it allows you then to make, so things are predictable. You're not thrown off guard by surprise, by things, geez, I thought he was like this, I could have known this guy and he screwed me over, right? That doesn't happen. That things do not feel out of control, that things feel fulfilling, right? Because again, this idea of you can make sense of it. Versus, if you remember your life in active addiction, right? How predictable was your life? Anything, were there any surprises in it? I don't know how many clients we've had who would say things to us like, things were going great and then she dumped me. And it was like out of the blue. But of course, it can't possibly be out of the blue. I mean, there are always signs, always clues, which the client never picked up on. Were their lives manageable? Well, that's a sort of a no-brainer on that one. And were their lives meaningful? Well, I think we'll all agree that if we're doing something that's hurting us on any number of levels, from physical health to losing or running into troubles with the family, to having sneak around the job site so we don't get fired, or if we're in the boss coming up with some excuse so we can get out and go do our thing, that kind of stuff. Not a very meaningful life. No, or as my big joke, right, is like for all this effort and creativity and all the money you spent, you know, did the mayor of the local town give you an award for all this addictive behavior? Probably not. So nothing really is getting accomplished, no real meaningful activity. So I think, again, with Antonovsky's idea that if you can look back at your life and make sense of it in somehow, which means you have a framework that is capable of making sense of your life, then it becomes meaningful and manageable and predictable. And this is in fact what a lot of people say, you know, this is the key feature of spirituality, that it allows you to do that. So if you believe in the Christian God, for example, you believe in Christianity, you have almost this ready-made way of making sense of the world. Similar if you're a Buddhist, or even things like if you believe in love, right? This will provide you with a way of making sense of the world. Anyway, that's it for our August online program. As always, we have the written portion and a few questions for you that you can answer and send them in. And we'll see you in September.